Welcome to episode 195 of the Red Room Podcast. I'm Scott Ryan, and today we have another special Clubhouse episode. Now, Clubhouse is a new app that. I'm just kidding. I don't know what Clubhouse is. Did you think I was going to explain to you Clubhouse? I don't understand what it is. All I know is I'm on it. You don't have to understand things. We're basically living in an episode of Star Trek right now, where we understand nothing, but we use the technology. And I'm that guy on the planet telling Picard, it's fine. So KJ Matthews is the moderator tonight, and I am the co moderator. We're going to pop in to the episode right here, and you're wondering, hey, what's the episode about? Well, it's about Hacks, the greatest show on TV right now. It is my absolute favorite. It's on HBO Max. It stars Gene Smart and Hannah Einbinder. It is just so good. It's a great show about comedy. We have all three of the writers. We've got Lucia, we've got Jen, we've got Paul W. Downs. We've got all three of them. They create, they write it, they direct it, and you're going to learn a lot. And they give some wonderful advice in this as well. KJ Matthews is going to start us off, and then I'll jump in, and then we open it up to questions because you see, on the app, the way they do it is.
I'd like to get started. This question is really for all three of the co-creators. Recently a lot of people started talking pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Everything is measured in time like that. I want you guys to tell us what your life was like pre-hacks and post-hacks with all this mega success that you've had. Take me back to what it was like before hacks, and then fast forward to now. How has your life changed? All three.
This is Lucia. Hi, everybody. Love you. It's really interesting because we actually came up with this idea about five and a half. Well, it's almost 6 years ago now, and we always kind of returned to it. We kept thinking about it and talking about it, but we were just always working on different stuff, and so we just never really had the right opportunity to go and pitch it and try to make it. But the time did present itself about 2 years ago, and we were really lucky that we had gotten a pilot order. From HBO Max. And that happened, I think maybe the fall of 2019. We wrote the pilot, we were starting to cast the pilot. And then that's when the pandemic happened.
COVID-19.
COVID-19, you guys have heard of it, I'm sure. So really what is interesting is that, we were in this really interesting spot where we hadn't actually shot the pilot yet, but we were in, luckily HBO Max is like, well, why don't you just go and write the show and we'll see what happens. And so we wrote the entire show over Zoom. We were in production. I mean, yeah, we were in production through COVID the whole time. And then we did post production, so our editing and color and sound and everything also over Zoom. So it was very stark difference from kind of what the rest of our friends were going through versus what we were during the pandemic. We were like working crazy amounts and like working on the weekends, and we just like, I'm just like, let's put it this way, we weren't baking any banana bread. We did not have banana bread time in our lives, which is, in a
That's such a
way too bad.
tragedy. Oh, how did
I
you make
know.
it through? I'm really sending it out to you. I apologize
Thank
that you
you.
couldn't
Thank you,
make your
Scott.
banana.
Thank you,
Thank you, Scott.
Scott.
Now, remember when we were talking about Clubhouse as a new app? Yeah, it cut out for a second, and so I don't have the next question, but you can get the next answer and guess what the question was. KJ asked a great question, but it makes it even better when you don't know what it is. But let's listen to Jen's answer.
There's this trend of these women who have like worked so hard year after year after year, and it's been a very difficult journey for them in Hollywood. Certainly wasn't very easy 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. But nevertheless, they kept working and kept their nose to the grindstone, and they'd never really get the acclaim that maybe some of their, straight white male cis counterparts get. And so that's kind of like where it started, was this idea of like, we want to explore that, a woman like that, her life and what it's like and what her journey has been, and maybe and basically kind of craft a redemption story for someone like that who has been a little bit pushed out of the public eye, but is really talented and really good and has worked so incredibly hard that she deserves credit for it. So it kind of came out of that conversation, and then yeah, like Lucia said, we just kept returning to the idea, knowing that there was something there that we wanted to explore.
And you definitely did that. You did an amazing job. A real quick question. Who wrote the Richard Linklater joke in the pilot about they won't find out for 20 years?
I think that was Jen. Jen,
I think
right?
it was Jen. Yeah.
I think that was me, yes.
Well, then I gotta say, first and foremost, that is a spectacular joke. I did not catch it the first time I watched it, but this my second time through, I started busting up. Really, really good joke.
Thanks.
So I've been studying comedy my whole life. It's just to me, it's like constitutional law or something. And so this show is like right up my alley. Tell me about There Is No Line. I mean, just what a great a great title for a comedy, a pilot about comedy. Each of you tell me what your opinion is of There Is No Line, because my wife definitely believes there is a line and I cross it.
I'd love to know how. I would love examples of that. Yeah, there is no line. Obviously, as you may remember, in the scene when we meet Ava, she's talking about this transgression that she's had on social media, where she says, "I guess I crossed a line." And then later, when she's met Deborah, she says, I guess I crossed a line or whatever in this tweet that I did." And Deborah says, "Oh no, there is no line. It's just not funny." Because to someone like Deborah Vance, one of these old school comedians who, came up in really a boys' club, to her there is no line. Anything can be funny. It's about the execution of the joke. And there's a famous phrase, "You can't take back a laugh," and I think that's something that's very much a part of Deborah's philosophy, which is if I get you to laugh, you can't take it back. So it's okay that it was said, but Ava obviously comes from a generation that's a little bit more conscientious of the target of a joke, and um, you know, I think she's someone who's much more aware of punching down. Um, and so that was the very interesting thing we really wanted to explore, even from the very first moment.
Yeah, and it's
And
not. Go
it's
ahead.
so good too. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and we really, it was important to us that we never framed either character as always right or always wrong. I think they both have very strong points of view, and while they are constantly butting heads on those points of view, you do see eventually that the constant butting of those heads starts to crack each other open a little, and a little bit starts seeping into each other's kind of subconscious. And I think to us that's like kind of part of the journey, right? Is like being able to have a relationship with somebody who you don't agree with, but over time you start to appreciate them and maybe understand their point of view. And so, in a way, and I've never even gotten into this, but in a way, the show is really about empathy, and starting to be able to see things from somebody else's point of view. And so, in Deborah's point of view, there is no line, and anything can be funny if it's funny. And I think that's something that Ava will learn on her journey.
Speaking of Deborah and what you're saying there, I think the scene that really got me, that I said, "Oh, I'm definitely all in for this series." Uh, Episode one, the meeting between Deborah and Ava, and they start sparring and going at each other. And I think there's a line about the Cheesecake Factory and Liberace. It's just so well written. It's so funny, but at the same time, it's kind of cringeworthy. And I'm wondering which one of you guys wrote the lines for Ava during that kind of back and forth between her and Deborah, Jean Smart's character.
Me?
No.
No, I'm only kidding. It's really, we really, totally joking. I think we all really share responsibility completely, because it's such a collaborative process, and the show itself is about this creative collaboration between these two characters. And for Jen, Lucci, and I mean, that's why we were all together for that road trip to the Monster Jam truck rally for my Netflix special. There's nobody I find funnier than Jen and Lucia, and so I begged them to come and help me be funnier for that special. So I don't know if we can say,
Yeah, there isn't one of us who necessarily writes more Ava or more Deborah. I don't think. I think we all
Yeah,
kind of share, and also, our other writers also contribute a lot too.
yeah, TV writing is like, obviously you guys know, it's like so collaborative. So I think we really do just go over every script. Like we're all writing lines for all the characters.
Well, the Senator Rogers jokes, um, I imagine that you guys wrote 100 of them. I mean, how
Yeah.
did you do that? Because I was so impressed with how you honestly made it funnier. And I feel like everyone who loves comedy, you think about something and you're working it. Can you guys talk us through writing that scene and I guess set it up for maybe someone who doesn't know what we're talking?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the essential joke that Ava gets canceled for is that she makes a joke about a senator who's homophobic in his, policies, um, finding out that his own son is gay, and the joke, as Scott's saying, kind of evolves. You hear Ava's version of it, and then you hear Deborah punching it up, and then you hear Ava pitching again on it, and then Deborah has one more final punch up on it. So it goes through quite a few iterations. Um, and yeah, it was interesting because we really felt like that was the most realistic to us, that she would get canceled for something that is more something that the right cancels her for more so than the left, in terms of politically. But it's interesting. It's also something that we don't, as you know, if you've seen the show, harp on too much, because for us, the show really isn't about cancel culture. It's more about a culture that has always kind of pushed women to the side. And that's why Deborah and Ava kind of find each other both on the fringes of society a little bit. That's why neither of them are really in Hollywood or working in more traditional modes. Um, and so yeah, for us it's the show, but you're right, it did go through a lot of drafts and a lot of different versions of it. But for us, it kind of, the idea of somebody else wanting to helping you make a joke better, and giving you something that you then yes and you try to make that version funnier, and then that inspires them to make something better. That spark is really the whole reason the two of them are together. Is that spark is the reason that Deborah hires Ava to work for her, is because Ava makes Deborah funnier. And so that's a really rare thing, I think, to find. And it really serves as like the catalyst for the whole story and for their relationship.
And the top to the bottom was the best line.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's the line that got me. I loved it. So, the other thing that I think is very fascinating is you're two-thirds of the way through the pilot before the two stars meet.
Mhm.
And if this was a network show, they'd be freaking out about that. I'm curious if you had any network feedback on that, or was everyone okay with it because it's HBO? I mean, it's pretty rare for something like that to happen where it takes you honestly set them both up before they collide. And so it's believable.
Yeah, it definitely, you're exactly right that in a more traditional network pilot, there's just like no way you're probably allowed to have them go that long without meeting each other. And I think maybe at some point it was talked about, but we always were really confident in this story, in this pilot story, and we just knew that it's like a love story between these two characters in a lot of ways, and it's about the ways that they need each other and make each other better. And so what we wanted to show was their lives before each other, and show them in a position of that need, and that like needing this person to come into their life to provide something that isn't there. And so it was always like, luckily, just throughout the entire show, we had incredible partners at HBO Max and Universal, and they really supported us in what we wanted to do. And so, once, even like if a thing's brought up, like, have you thought about this? And once we kind of are like, no, we know it's gonna be this way, they really like do listen to us and give us the creative freedom to execute it the way we want to, which is really nice.
Well, and it made a difference for me because those are the things I look for in a pilot. It's believable the way, you had to set both characters up, or that scene, as KJ was talking about with the Liberace comments and all that, they were earned by that point. So great job.
Thank you. Yeah, we really wanted to sort of put them on this crash course toward each other so that you were really experiencing what their life was like without each other, as Jen said. And then it really does build to a very climactic moment. And you're seeing them sort of on this collision course the entire time until they finally do.
I want to kind of turn the conversation to the actors themselves. You really had an embarrassment of riches when it comes to actors and actresses for this series. I mean, it was just amazing. On the one end of the spectrum, of course, you have the season Emmy winner Jean Smart. You even have Angela Gibbs, who's the daughter Marla, the great Marla Gibbs. You've got Jane Addams. You've got Anna Maria Horsford. All of those people have been in television for decades.
Mhm.
So
They're
good.
just the best of the best. We
Yeah.
recognize their faces immediately, even if you don't recognize the name. But at the other end of the spectrum, you've got the newer actors like Carl Clement Hopkins,
Mhm.
plays Marcus, and you've got Hannah who plays Ava. So, talk to me about how you put all of them kind of into one room and made this work, and how you decided you knew when you got Hannah. I think you said, I read somewhere that you had more than 400 people
Yeah.
audition for the role of Hannah, but you knew immediately that you wanted Jean Smart in the lead role. So
Yeah,
talk to
we
me.
we had already cast Jean, but yes, it is true that we had a quite a journey in finding Hannah for Ava. But I think we really, all three of us, love finding fresh new talent. It's something
Hmm.
that's really exciting for us. So yeah, Ava, I mean Hannah Einbinder had never acted before. Carl was coming from Chicago theater. Meg Stalter, I think this is her first TV role as well. So yeah, and then on the other hand, you have like Caitlin Olsen, Chris McDonald, and Jane Addams, and yeah, like you said, all those Angela Gibbs, who's amazing, and Lunell, like people that you're like, oh, thank you,
Hmm.
excited to see them. But for us, I think we always are just looking for who's the best for the role, and so often, there are people that we're like, oh God, I would love that, like. Lauren Weedman, who plays Mayor Joe Pezzamenti, is
Hmm.
somebody who we always are like, oh God, she's so funny, everything she's in. So when she auditioned, we were so over the moon. But yeah, I mean, we love writing for performers and for actors. We get really excited about it. Even sometimes if we haven't cast somebody, when we're writing, we think about somebody specific, and then that helps generate our writing because we're able to think of it in their voice. So we get really excited about that, and also, yeah, the idea of bringing really fresh new talent out and introducing them in a way that feels like it gets to have them show off their abilities is really very rewarding for us. In addition to casting somebody like Jean, who obviously, like you said, a multiple Emmy winner, but I don't personally feel like she's really been able to show the full range of her genius. She's so funny, but she's also such a great dramatic actor. To be able to give her a role that she gets to do all of it and be cool and sexy and funny and sarcastic and mean and throw an iPad in the pool. She gets to do all those things. I haven't gotten to see her throw an iPad in a pool and anything else. So I'm really excited to give her that opportunity.
Well, I'm still feeling bad about your banana bread, so I want to give you guys a gift. And I have this idea,
Okay.
I'm
Ooh.
going to give it to you. This is just something keep in your back pocket. Last episode, you have Gene Smart sing I'm Still Here. If you're Sondheim fans, it'd be a good ending. You rewrite it for Leno and Letterman and all that, but
Ah.
that's just a banana bread for you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Um,
We
Thank you,
you
appreciate
Scott.
know,
that.
I'm
We'll
trying to
take it.
share.
We always love a good
Do you have
pitch.
any idea about
We'll
the
have our
rights, like the
lawyers
cost of
reach out to
rights?
you.
The
Yeah.
rights are going to kill you because I don't think Sondheim lets people rewrite him. But you know
Yeah,
what?
I
You're going
bet
to
he's
have
not
made
able.
enough
There
by
are
that point that
there
you
are
can be
parody
sued.
laws. You're allowed to do parody
Oh,
though.
good. Okay.
Parody
Oh,
law.
well, yeah. So, yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's just her character reminds me of that so much. I'm curious what you guys think of the Larry Sanders Show and if you had any thoughts about that show in your show. I see little similarities as far as the industry goes, and I just wondered if you guys are fans of that.
Oh, Larry Sanders, such a genius. I think that it's really, it really is interesting for us to do something that is sort of about the industry and pulling back the curtain. And it's funny because I think you hear a lot of times when people are pitching a show or thinking about a show, oftentimes you're warned like, oh, don't do the industry. It's something that feels, like
Too inside,
yeah, like
too
inside
specific.
baseball. But I do think one of the things that I think that was a strength in the pitch of this show is that it was really about women who were cast aside and kind of ostracized to Sin City and this desert oasis that they build for themselves. And so in that way, it is like as much as it's about the industry, it's also really about what happens off stage and behind the curtain. Um,
Yeah, and
I don't know if that answered your question, but
and I think also, like you're saying, Paul, like we were very aware there. I love the Larry Sanders Show; it's great. But like there had been so many shows that were about show business from the L.A. or New York perspective, and I like us having Vegas and being that such a huge part of it. Of like it's a show business show, but it's about show business for someone who lives and primarily works in Vegas was also, I think, a huge advantage in pitching it, just because there are so many showbiz shows set in Los Angeles.
And
You know,
I'm
I
sure we're going to open it up soon, so
yeah,
people
I
should
just
be
wanted to
thinking about
say,
their question. Go ahead,
right, yeah,
KJ.
definitely everybody get your questions together. But I want to just get back to you guys all being nominated for Emmys. You
Happy to talk
probably
about it.
knew, yeah, yeah, you probably knew you would get some Emmy nominations, but did you really have any idea you would get 15? I mean, I
no.
think every single Emmy category that you can be nominated in, your show is nominated in. I mean, it's amazing. I'm just wondering, how surprised you were the morning that the Emmy nominations came out and you found out that your show was attached to 15 Emmy nominations.
We were honestly floored. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I really getting a front row seat to see people like Jean, really like Lucia said, really get a chance in a leading role to show her full range. We were like, she deserves it, and I really feel like she might get this nomination. But you never really know. But it was such a huge surprise, and it
Yeah.
felt so gratifying that so many department heads, so many talented actors, like you said, so many categories were recognized was just so gratifying because it really takes a village to make a show, and it's especially in this scenario where we did make it, during the pandemic, we had so many talented artists contribute to it. We were just floored and over the moon and shocked, really,
Yeah,
but we were
really
so
very
happy.
surprised. We didn't, and especially because the show came out quite recently, and we just weren't even sure how many people had seen it. And so that also, I think, it said to us a little bit that the show was at least resonating in a way that we weren't able to really understand, and still don't really understand, to be honest.
Well, this is a time I'd like to kind of turn the
Yeah, let me
mic over
ask
to
one
the.
more.
Oh,
We'll
go
let him.
ahead. I'm
I
sorry,
just
Scott.
have
Go ahead.
one
Ask one more question.
question. I mean, I have 700 questions, but I want to be polite. But Lucia, tell me about directing that oneer that opened
Hmm.
it up.
Yeah,
That was
that.
just beautiful. Congratulations on that
Thank
shot. It
you.
was beautiful.
Thank you. I'm going to tell you all the nitty gritty. You didn't really want as
Ooh,
many
no,
questions. You
I
didn't
want
really.
nitty gritty.
Okay, so that shot is actually shot in two totally different locations. So the first part of it was actually on stage at the Ebell Theater here in LA. And then there's a moment where she says to the guy, like, you sleep on the couch more than my dogs do. And then she goes through a doorway. And in the moment that she goes through that doorway, there's about 5 or 6 frames, I believe, where you lose her. And in that little moment, we created a little scene where you then are now shooting on our stages, which we shot at Paramount. So then that oneer connects to that second shot, and we did that on our stage. And that was actually a reshoot. We shot that twice. There was just a little bit of writing stuff that we needed to adjust, and a little bit of things that we messed up on the first time. I'll just say I messed up. And so yeah, that was actually a second take of that. And yeah, it launches us into a sequence that we hope really tells you who this woman is. When she's working, she is happy, she is on it, her life is fulfilled. But then as soon as she gets home and she's by herself, that's when the sadness starts to set in. So I really wanted the camera to kind of tell you how she feels, whether she's at work versus when she's at home.
So if you want to win that Emmy, you just
Mm.
say the whole thing's a oneer. Forget about the thing in
Well, I
between.
actually think.
That's how you win the Emmy. You lie
Well,
and
I
you
don't
say
know.
it
I
was a
think it's more
oneer.
impressive that I did told it you think it's a oneer and it's not.
Okay, well, we'll find out on Emmy night. I don't know. I mean, you could be right, I could be right. But it was beautifully shot, so congratulations.
Thank.
Yeah. Well, this is the time, I'd love to open up the room. I know there's a lot of people in here who are dying to ask questions. So let me just reset the room before we move on to the questions. Anybody in the audience have a question? This is the time to raise your hand so we can bring you to the stage. And I just want to reset the room and remind everyone that we are the Writing for Your Life group room where we hear from some of the most acclaimed screenwriters, showrunners, authors, and journalists every week. Tonight, we are fortunate enough to have all three co creators of the hit HBO Max series Hacks. And with that, fire your questions away. I think Marcus, would you have a question you'd like to ask the co-creators?
Absolutely. First off, I want to say I'm a big fan of the show.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
But the question I wanted to ask is there a specific sitcom Bible that you guys use as a reference or a resource when you were writing your own Bible for hacks? Perhaps a Bible of a show that you previously staffed on?
Uh, no, actually, we didn't really have to do a series Bible. I know that sometimes that is a step that you're asked to do, but we didn't do a series Bible for hacks. And to be honest, like I'm thinking back to other shows I've staffed on, like I don't think we really had them for those either. So yeah, I don't know. That wasn't really something we used in starting this series.
Yeah, I would add, this is Paul. I would add that the one thing we did was we did write out kind of a detailed character backstory, which was something that we shared with Jean Smart when she first read the script, because we wanted to give her a little bit of context. But like Jen said, we actually didn't do a formal
No.
Bible.
But so much of what we wanted to do season one was in our original pitch.
That's true.
So I would say
We
the
did do a
most
pitch script. Yeah.
yes, and our pitch script was like many, many, many pages long. Unfortunately for whoever we were pitching it to. But yeah, that really kind of was our most thorough like exploration of characters and arcs and themes and all that.
Great.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marcus. Ed, you're next. You have a question for just have to unmute your mic, Ed, if you're there. Just look in the lower right hand corner.
I got it. I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks, you guys. You have a great show. I always look forward to watching it. I couldn't help noticing or wondering that Deborah Vance reminded me a lot of Joan Rivers, and I was wondering if there was any influence um, with Joan Rivers' career and life, because she has a daughter just like Deborah Vance does, and Deborah Vance had a brief experience with late night TV hosting, and so did Joan Rivers for a while. Filled in for Johnny, and I think there was some unknown reason that she stopped filling in for Johnny. So I was wondering if you were ever influenced by Joan Rivers in creating Deborah.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. That is a great question and very astute, because we drew on a lot of showbiz veterans that are not just comedians. Actually, if you had read our backstory, or if you hear some of the stuff that they talk about in latter episodes, Deborah had a stage show with her husband when she began her career, kind of like a Nichols and May. So there's a little bit of Elaine May in there.
Uh-huh.
She had that sitcom with her husband and a very public divorce, not unlike Lucille Ball. Of course, there's Joan Rivers, because there's that QVC connection, and Joan did Vegas shows. But there's also a lot of Debbie Reynolds, who
Ah,
had a long run in Vegas, and also was maligned by managers and ex-husbands, and stolen from left, right, and center. And yeah, there's also a lot
Rita
of
Rudner.
there's a lot, yeah, Rita Rudner and Paula Poundstone and Elaine Boozler. There's a lot of female stand-ups that we drew on, and that many of whom aren't even that well known, because they'd never got their due. But of course, Joan is one of those people, and Phyllis Diller was another
Oh,
one. When we first
major.
met with Jean, she had told us that she always wanted to be a stand-up comedian, so it felt really kismet to get the script. And even told us about when she was about 11 or 12, she went to a Halloween party, and all of her friends were witches or ghosts or princesses, and she had dressed like an insane Phyllis Diller with a long cigarette. So we thought, okay, this is really written in the stars.
yeah, it showed. Thank you.
Well, thanks for that, Ed. I think Rashad, you're next. If you want to just unmute your microphone in the lower right hand corner there and ask the co-creators some questions.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for this room. Really informative, and fan of the show, of
Thank
course,
you.
like everyone here.
Thanks.
So on premiere day of Hacks,
Mhm.
it was lunchtime, and my partner and I were ordering lunch from Postmates, and we saw this free mocktail provided by HBO Max
Mhm.
in promoting Hacks, and I'm curious to know, did you all have something to do with that, or was that like just the marketing department of HBO?
Yeah, that was full marketing department. Sometimes we open our apps and we see stuff like that for the first time. We're like, oh,
We're like, great,
Guess we're
cool.
doing
that's
that.
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It was really,
want that.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was very
no,
nice.
we don't tend to really have too much to do with like a lot of that kind of especially the more gonzo marketing stuff. We really don't have anything to do with, but yeah,
It was a pleasant surprise for
it
us
was
too.
really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Did you get one?
yeah, how was it?
We did, and I think we actually were the last ones because when I sent it to a friend, they were like, "Oh my god, like they're sold out." So I think that's
Oh,
why
I'm
it was.
glad you got it.
Yeah, it was good. That was great.
Good, good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rashad. I appreciate that. I think next we're going to go ahead to Jennifer. There, she's there. Jennifer, you're on mic, so you can just go.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'm gonna repeat what everybody else has said. Thank you for having this room. It's really informative. I'm a stand-up comic, and I really, really connected with this show. So I want to say thank you for that. Um,
So glad.
so my, yeah, so my question is that how did you balance how did you balance the character with her being kind of like harsh without having to feel like the stereotype of like a female comic, kind of not caring about people and stuff like that. Like, how did you
Yeah.
write for her character and give her like some type of humanity without it being like a trope?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think, always a challenge. I think you're playing with a little bit with a cheat code if your lead is Jean Smart, honestly,
Mhm.
Right.
because everyone just naturally loves her. But yeah, I think for us, like we wanted her always to like be harsh and have those kind of witty comebacks, but also I think because we show, I think a lot of her loneliness, and we show how hard it is for her to kind of have these longer relationships in her life, whether it's with her daughter or whoever. Like I think because we show that side of her, you kind of understand why she's hard, and especially when we go farther into her backstory in episode 3 and then again in 6. I think once you really show like here's how this person became this person, which was kind of always the point of the show for us, is not just like this isn't a show about jokes, it's about why they tell these jokes. So I think by showing like kind of the full range of somebody's humanity, you kind of then are able to forgive a little bit more of the misbehavior, if you're lucky. Is
Okay.
that right,
Thank
Jen? Paul? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, Jean is such a talented actor, obviously, that she's able to convey so much like realness and groundedness and like just like a look even. But yeah, it was also just like really being guided by what even the show, though the show is a comedy and is funny, just like we always wanted it to feel grounded and real. So it's about what would this woman really be dealing with? What would actually happen to her? What would be the real, true, grounded emotional reaction to that? And sometimes it's funny and big, and then sometimes it's kind of small and sad, and we just sort of were always guided by that tone of keeping it grounded.
Mm.
Well, thank
Thank you
you.
for that.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for that question. Very good question.
Thank
I think Elizabeth, you're next. If you have a question for one or all three of the co-creators, go right ahead.
All right, thank you. And again, thanks for this room and to all you co creators. Hacks is brilliant. And it's rare that my husband and I find a series that we both love because he's more darker than I am, but we both thought this was so great.
Thank
And
Thank
you.
you. I love that.
Thank you. And your husband sounds cool.
yeah, he is pretty cool. But Jean Smart is a comedy goddess. But Hannah Einbinder is so wonderful too. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you went about finding and casting that role and finding somebody who's such a perfect match for Jean. I'm Elizabeth and I'm done asking.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, as KJ mentioned, we saw a lot of incredibly talented actors. I think upwards of 400 women read for the role because we really did want to find somebody who was a few things. One, believable as a comedy writer, which is not easy to do. There's a lot of amazing actors, and you're like, that person is great, but it's hard to believe that they're coming up with jokes or a writer of jokes. And also, we wanted somebody who, Hannah came in and was so natural and convincing, and it also was the age of the character. She is an emerging comedian herself, so the believability of being a comedy writer was there. And she also, for all of her toughness, because she comes off as a very kind of tough and self-possessed person, there was also a bit of a vulnerability and a shyness and something beneath the surface, and we really wanted that to shine through and thought it was important for the character because she's a bit of, an entitled writer who's had some early success and sort of drunk the juice of that. And, we really wanted somebody who could go toe to toe with Deborah, but also you could see that there was a little bit of loneliness beneath her as well. We really wanted the two to be reflections of each other, and Hannah just really embodied it. She really was so good. And in her callback, I was reading with her because I was reading the scene where I played Jimmy, the manager, and I was reading that scene with her, and I was looking down at my sides, and everyone laughed really hard, and I thought, well, I must have said something very funny. But what I didn't realize was because I was looking down at the sides, Hannah had brought a vape pen and was actually vaping, which is so character specific and good to bring a vape pen, which is why we wrote it into the show, and she does it in the pilot. Um, so that was a lot of rambling about just the
Yeah.
natural gifts of Hannah
Yeah,
Einbinder.
she'd never acted, I think, a day in her life, and I think she's just so natural, and that's, sometimes you can teach it and sometimes you can't. And for her, she didn't need to be taught. And actually, she taught us a couple things.
Yeah, Lucci, I was just going to mention she was on a morning network show where they talked about her background, and she said, "Well, before this, before being nominated for an Emmy, I was pretty much working in coffee shops,
Yeah.
and she really was serious. It was funny, a lot of actors say that, of course, that they're waiting tables before their big shot, but she really was like waiting tables and working in a coffee shop before she was actually cast on
Yes.
this hit
You
show."
want to you want a fun tip, KJ?
Tidbit, yeah.
Tidbit is that okay? So when she is going up to Taylor at the cafe in the pilot, that is actually shot at a place called Alfred Coffee, and across the street is Alfred Tea Room, which is connected to that coffee shop, and that's the actual place where Hannah used to work. So she actually was shooting the pilot. In the pilot, she was actually shooting at the cafe, pretty much where she had actually last worked,
Like 5 months
like
before.
truly while
Yeah.
she was auditioning,
That
which is
is
crazy.
that is wild. That's crazy. I didn't see that anywhere. So that's
No,
breaking news in the
Clubhouse
clubhouse here.
exclusive.
Clubhouse
Yeah.
exclusive. It's breaking news. In
It's an
fact, some
exclusive,
of
yeah.
her former employees did
Or coworkers.
yeah, former coworkers did wreck a take because they saw her and they were like, Hannah.
They didn't realize she was on camera because they didn't know, because she wasn't an actor as far as they knew she was a stand-up.
It was wild.
That's
That was great of
crazy.
you guys to make her carpool to work not so bad. She could just come right across from work, boom,
Yeah,
into the
she
scene.
knew the
You guys are
route.
Exactly.
so
She
How
knows
to
the
get.
route. She knows
Yeah.
the parking. She was an expert.
Hilarious, hilarious. Well, we want to open it up again. I know Christina has been waiting. So, Christina, if you unmute your mic, go ahead. You can ask the co-creators a question.
Oh, hey guys. I wanna let you know I got HBO Max just to watch your show
Oh my
Oh
because
my
God.
gosh,
You're the
thank
best.
you.
You're the
You're
best.
the best.
and it was 110% worth it. And I love the characters are not at like anything I've seen. And I cover entertainment. I love that you like combined, the entitled writer, loneliness, drugs, sexuality, bisexuality, and I mean it was just like my mind was blown every episode. My question is like, how did you keep building? I never felt like at the end of every episode, like every episode topped the next episode. So when you're telling story, how do you continue that build? Are you watching dailies or how do you do that? Because you did it so well.
Thank you. That a lot of that really gets worked out in the writer's room. We actually had all 10 scripts fully written before we started shooting. So, yeah, I mean, I think we really pushed ourselves to always do something a little bit unexpected. I think for us, if we are able to get character from A to B, we think, okay, well, what's a totally different way to get them to C, or how can we circumvent that B to get them a D, or whatever it is. Like, I think we really are always trying to push ourselves to, like, I think there's some parts of the show that are like, obviously over the course of the show, the two of them will grow a fondness for one another in one way or another. And of course, one step forward, two steps back. But we really tried to push plot and character development in ways that you didn't see coming. And that oftentimes was just like us saying, okay, that works, but now what's another way that same thing could happen? And yeah, I mean, I think it was also a balance where we wanted to make sure you kind of understood the situation and the world and the characters and all the players in the first couple episodes. And I think once you kind of get settled into it, then we felt a little bit more free to kind of do episodes you really don't see coming. So like episode 5, Falling, where Ava goes out on this night with this manic pixie dream boy she meets, or whether it's New Eyes and 6, where they go on a retreat when Deborah gets a eye lift. Like we were able to really kind of do a little bit more departure episodes because we'd already establish the world, I think, enough. And then from there, the plot and that stuff really kind of took over in 8, 9, and 10. And I don't know. I don't really know if there's like a specific way to answer it, other than I think we just really push ourselves in the writing. Is that right,
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah, yeah, I think
Mhm.
exactly. It's
So you get final say for the
Mhm.
cuts.
Yeah, I mean, we do get notes sometimes, but I will say that but HBO Max has been really collaborative and cool. And like, if we are like, no, we really believe in this, they're like, okay, cool. Every once in a while, there'll be something that we'll take out and they go, oh, we missed it. And we can, and then we're like, okay, we're happy to put it back in because, usually we were on the line, but it's only been a positive collaborative experience. So there hasn't been anything creatively in terms of the edits that has gotten to like like a fight or argument or anything. It's only been positive.
Well, I can't wait to see what you guys do next.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Thank you
again.
so much, Christina.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christina. I had a question for you guys. I was thinking I didn't ask you earlier. I love the nuance that you give between Carl and Ava and their parents. I really, really love it. And I wonder if you guys could kind of talk about how you fleshed out their characters and the relationships that they have with their mothers, and definitely for Ava with her father on the show. If you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we really wanted it to feel like connected. We've heard from so many people in like a way that is both sorry for these people, but also it's cool to connect. They're like, oh my God, Ava's mom is my mom. I like feel this so hard. And like we just wanted, yeah, it to feel really real and like you said, grounded. And so just kind of taking our time with exploring these characters and sketching them out and some of it is drawing from our own experiences, some of it is drawing from our writers experiences, but I think like what she said, it's kind of just like pushing yourself to not do the first thought idea of what is someone's mom like, what is that game between the two characters like Ava and her mom or Marcus and his mom. And so yeah, it was just kind of I think you just really have to put the thought into it and push yourself to not do maybe the easiest first example you think of.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll just add to that I think we also really, when we pitched the show, talked about this woman, Deborah Vance, a character study of this larger than life character, but also her ecosystem and all of the ensemble in her world. But we didn't want everyone to be seen just through the lens of Deborah, which is why we really were like, we want to explore all of these characters, Marcus especially, and see him in his space with his mother. And spend some more time getting to know that character, not necessarily just in service to Deborah's character, but with storylines and a love interest of his own. And we're so glad we did because Angela Gibbs is so good, and we enjoyed working with her so much. Her and Lunel together we were like, okay, this is a spin-off.
Yes.
We love this
It's
show.
like comedy
Um,
gold. It really is.
aren't they great?
They're
I mean,
so
we
funny.
laughed so much with them, and we do plan to have them back. Sorry to spoil. Hope Jen and Lucia will
It's
forgive
just
me.
true. It's just true. They're coming
All our
back, baby.
negotiating power out the window now.
Or not. Maybe it depends on how happy they are, how
I
cheap
mean,
they are.
yeah.
No, it's fine. We'll pay them what
They deserve
they
to be paid.
deserve it.
Well, someone who has no interest in a superhero finding a glowing rock, I am just so thankful that you're doing grown-up television, and I'm thankful for that. It's been so great to watch it.
Thank
I write books about television, and I'm just putting it out there. I want my next book to be about hacks, so when you
Right?
guys are ready, I'll get you a copy of my moonlighting book and you'll see what I can do. But that's not why we're here. We're here for writers to learn how to write. So I want all three of you. There's a writer in this room. I don't know who they are, but I know they're out there and they're struggling and they're not sure. Can each of you give them some advice, give them a pep talk. What do you got for the writer out there that wants to be you?
Okay. Hi, this is Lucia. Okay. My advice is do not look towards anything else that other people are writing and thinking like, oh, well, people are writing this right now, so I should be writing it. Or I'm going to follow the format of this other show because it's whatever. This is how you're supposed to write. I really don't believe in that. I really believe that like you should tell your story. The more unique and specific, the better, because there's so many things out there that are middle of the road or that are maybe a slightly better than middle of the road or slightly worse, but the more unique and specific you can make something to your voice and your point of view, the more it'll stand out. No one can write your point of view as well as you can. So instead of trying to be more like other people, not that that person is trying to do that, I would say go in the opposite direction and try to be more as unique as possible. And that is the thing. Not only is it going to be more satisfying to you because it's your unique point of view, but it also will, I think, stand out more as you try to get things made. That's my advice. That's just me.
That's just great advice. I couldn't agree more. Wonderful. So far, she's winning. Can Paul?
You guys can beat it.
Can
You guys can
Paul?
beat it.
Jen, you try and beat it first, and I'll
Oh,
think.
he's got an ace in the hole. He wants to
Oh
show his
yeah, now
cards
I know
left.
Paula has something really good
No,
to
no,
say.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm
Get him,
googling. I'm
Jen.
googling how to write. You talk.
Hilarious,
um,
hilarious.
I think, you can get obviously writing and trying to get your first job or your first break is like such a huge task and it takes so much work, but in my life, like the writers that I've worked with that are the funniest and most insightful are the people who just keep experiencing life and keep seeking out different viewpoints and living the world not just as a writer but as a human and like having human experiences. So I think it can get very easy to say like I have to be writing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And sure, you definitely have to write a lot and try really hard, but don't forget to be a human in the world and still like have experience because that's the stuff that's going to inform your writing and it's going to be the unique experiences that only you can bring. So I think that would be my advice is to work hard, but don't forget that there's a whole other part of your life that isn't about being a writer and that actually uh informs your writing and helps it. And so don't forget to live your life.
Great.
Okay.
Those are all really good answers, and I appreciate you guys doing that. I want to make sure we get the last
Wait a
questions
minute,
in
we didn't
before
get
we.
Paul's. We didn't get Paul's. Remember, he's
Oh, Paul, I'm
Googled.
sorry.
He
It's
I
okay.
spent
am
all
I'll
that
sorry.
time
I keep
Googling.
thinking Paul and
He's got
Lucia
time.
together. My
No.
sincere apologies,
Don't even
Paul.
worry.
Absolutely, we want your tip.
Don't even worry. You know what? My advice isn't even good. Jen's is better, which is don't write. I think that's a good piece of advice for writing. I'm only.
Yeah, go to the
I'm
mall, go shopping, forget about it.
no. I tease. She's correct. You must get up to live or whatever. Anyway.
How
But
dare you sit down to write when you've not stood up to
there we go,
live?
Wall Whitman. Okay, what I was going to say is I think, and one of the things that was early on in my career, and Lucia was really someone who helped me with this, is don't wait until you think something is perfect to send it to someone or to share a script or to put it out there or to try and shoot it with friends or whatever it is. Just put it out. Just continue to do things, move on to the next thing. The more you, I think, try and make something perfect, just the less time you'll spend moving on to the next new idea. So I do think while that can be hard, of course you can get blocked and things can be difficult. Don't let, you know,
Perfectionism.
perfection get in the way of the good. Yeah. That's another not well said towering oak, but there you go. I think just put things out.
Yeah, I'm seeing now. I feel bad for skipping over you. You had wonderful advice, Paul.
Thank you, KJ. Thank
Definitely. I want to make sure we can squeeze these last people in before we end our room here. Julie, I know you've been hanging on. Can you just go ahead and ask your question to one or all three of our co-creators of Hacks here? You just got to unmute your mic.
Absolutely. Yes. Hi. So during COVID, as an actor, we read on Zoom 4 different pilots that writers were working on, and I was wondering what the early process was for the writers of Hacks. We loved Hacks. We loved the performances. We stumbled upon it, found it so refreshing, and I just wanted to know what some of the early development process was for the writers.
Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, I mean, We had this idea, I think in 2015, honestly. That's how far back it goes. And like we said, we were all working on different things and doing different stuff, but it was an idea that kind of stuck in our brains and we just kept returning to it, and we have this long email thread of like jokes and ideas for it. So it's an interesting idea because once we actually pitched it, it happened really quickly that the show was bought and we got to, picked up to a pilot, and then Gene was attached, and then it was greenlit to series. But for years before that, we had been kind of just like letting it marinate and think on it. And so we went into the pitch and then went into our first season with knowing a lot of what we wanted to do, because we had the time in our spare time while we weren't working on other things to do it.
Great, great. Andrew, I think you're up next. Do you have a question for one or all three of our co-creators?
Yeah, I'll be brief. I know you've all been here for a while. I love the show. It's a really great world you built. Like the universe of LA of Las Vegas comedy is so idiosyncratic. What was the research process like?
Lot of all-nighters in
No.
Vegas. No.
I will say that the Jen is the most comedy. I mean, well, yes, that's it, but the most Vegas centric person of us. So she's done quite a few trips to Vegas
Yeah,
to
Indeed,
I
do
we
needed this show to
research.
sell because I was in the red. It really needed to happen.
But yeah, we did go to Vegas
Yes.
together 4 times.
Yeah.
We drove there every time, and I have to say, on the road trip, we did always come up with new things for story because, again, that's how the show came to be, was driving to Portland, Maine for that Monster Jam monster truck show. So yeah, that was one way. Also, we did, I myself do stand up, and we did have other stand-ups that were in the room,
And who
many of whom
also
had played
consulted.
Vegas. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
So yeah, we did have experience in the room of people who had done stand up in Vegas.
Great, good to hear. And then lastly, Sarah, if you want to unmute your mic and ask the last question.
Sure. Well, first of all, as a comic, I was really impressed with how refreshing the take was on having a comedian like on their way out of the limelight and trying to get back in. I thought that was really unique. And I've really enjoyed the show. My question is about pitching process and getting those doors open. um, or how to basically light a fire under a manager's ass to actually get things to the right people. Because I'm currently trying to pitch. I've got a pitch deck with my writing partner, and she's got a manager, but they're not quite getting things in front of the right people. And I'm just trying to get to that next point.
Yeah, it's like that is, and I'll say that we definitely like had years and years of like having projects that were like, we really want to pitch this, we really want to do this, and like it is so frustrating when you're like, I'm ready to go, and everyone's like, well, everyone's on break right now. It's like it always feels like the whole like all of the industry is like constantly on vacation, and you're like, okay, but yeah, I mean, I think this isn't really necessarily the most pragmatic advice, but there's this like weird thing that I think that happens where if you're like making like you have, let's say, this pitch, or you have another show idea, or like if you kind of keep doing so much stuff that your managers or whoever reps or whatever feel like you're doing it almost without them, then they like kind of get on board in a weird way. Even people, I think once they have reps, they don't have to like work that hard to get their foot in the door, and that's actually like totally just not true. It's unfortunately you do have to continue to do the work yourself and get your own hype going. And if you like you're like, oh, we know these comedians and we're going to shoot like 10-minute 3-minute proof of concept on our phones and people are going to like it, or we're going to, I know this stand up because I do stand up, and they're going to attach, and they actually just booked a Comedy Central special. And so like you unfortunately just have to like build it yourself your whole career, even if you have reps. And
I was going to say a similar thing, that if there's anything you can do to make an asset of the pitch, and again, like Lucia said, maybe there's a emerging stand-up who's really popular online, and you're like, I think you'd be good for this part. Are you interested? And you use that as an asset. That could even be a
Yeah.
thing. But again, I'm no expert. I mean,
yeah,
Jen, you might.
yeah.
Yeah, I think everything Paul and Lucia said is right, and I also think like there's sometimes like they just need to have the thing shoved in front of them and to do it, to be told what to do. So I also think like, you know, I think it's super valuable as a writer to be like reading the trades like Deadline or
Hmm.
Hollywood Reporter or anything like that, because if you see, hey, like let's say your show is about a volleyball team, whatever, you see that there's some producer who has a background in that, you know what I mean? Like, oh, they just got a deal here. Hey, can you send this to them? Maybe they would be interested because this is like specifically interest to them and their volleyball world. I was looking at a volleyball. Honestly, it was a very zoomed out
Yeah.
example.
I actually, Jen, was thinking we should talk about this volleyball idea because I do like it.
Yeah, I think it actually has legs, and
It's
that's
got
for us.
legs.
So you guys can't have the volleyball idea, but yeah,
It's got
I
legs,
think
long legs.
lawn tan legs. I do think like keep your eye out on things like whether it's for certainly for staffing, like if there's an announcement about a show that you're like, oh, I weirdly am like specifically good for this, send them the link and go, do you know anyone who is connected to this? Could you send them my stuff? Or same thing, production company that has like a specific interest in what your pitch is about, just kind of like stay on them, because sometimes like they just want, if the easiest thing in the world is for them to go, oh, I need to call this one person, great, I'll do that one
Yeah.
thing. They told me what to do, let me go do it.
Same is true, I think, if there's alumni networks, whether it's college or even high school, and you're like, oh, my writing partner went to the same school as this person who is a big Bear fan, whatever. I think anything like Jen is saying, you can hone in and help kind of just make a cheat sheet for people. I think if you can say to your manager, right, here's the 3 targets I identified. Can you give them a call? It's just an easier, it's a little bit, you're putting the burden on them to do it and taking off some of the homework.
It really is so DIY, and it doesn't ever really stop. Is
Okay.
it true?
No, that's super helpful. I started doing a showrunner, like dream showrunner list already, and I'm trying to
Yep.
like figure out production companies that could be it. But yeah, it's good to know that it's good to do the work yourself too. Okay,
You
that's very
unfortunately
helpful.
have to. You're
Yeah.
not. No one's going to do it. Sorry, no shade to reps. Just there's too much going on. It's like you need
As
to.
someone who plays a rep on TV, I take offense to that. I do think there's a lot of good reps out there.
Yeah. Okay.
And you play it very well, Paul.
Thank you,
Very
KJ.
well. Thank
You
you.
know, I will certainly let KJ have the last word, but I just have to tell the 3 of you that just this advice that you just gave everyone on each of those questions, that's really going to make a difference for the people listening. You made a difference
Absolutely.
today. I mean, your show is
Absolutely.
great and everything, but to share that experience with someone who's longing to have that experience really matters. So thank you so much for
It's our pleasure.
attending this and
So
do
happy
this.
to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you
It's
for
amazing.
We're
thank you
putting
for
it.
giving us the opportunity to
Yeah.
share that. Thank you.
We all really believe in good creative karma, so
Mhm.
hopefully that'll just come back to us.
Yeah, and you guys are so
Unfortunately,
deserving of all the Emmy
I
nominations and the success that you're having, Jen and Lucia and Paul. You guys are so deserving. I cannot wait for the second season of Hacks. I mean, we all are anxiously waiting, so I can't wait to see what stellar writing lies ahead of us. So I'm really going to be tuning in, I'm sure, like everybody else is. And we just want to thank you once again for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know it's just a month and a half before the Emmy Awards actually happen. So you probably have a lot of promo and press to do. So we really appreciate you taking this time out of your schedule to just pop into this clubhouse room and talk to the audience and fans and whatnot. So thank you so much for doing that. And I hope everybody got something out of it tonight. I know there was a lot more people in the room this week than last week. So that really goes to show that people really, really love Hacks.
Hey,
So
wait a
it's
minute.
wonderful.
Last week it was about my moonlighting book. You're putting me down, co-host.
Maybe we didn't
Why
promote it
would
the
you
right
say
way,
that?
Scott.
I'm
You're
right
always
here.
great. You're always
Well,
great.
Scott, just
Well-
imagine your hacks book, how many people are going to be in here for
Yeah,
that.
Scott, get to work on that.
We'll join
Well,
you on the
I wanna
clubhouse
do
chat
it.
about your book, about your hacks book.
I'm actually messaging you right now, Lucia, about
Right.
it's about to happen.
I love
So joke's on you guys. I'm a
Great.
go-getter. And you
And-
just
and-
said don't give up. And by the way, I just bought volleyballshow.com. So you
Great.
guys are all
That's going to pay dividends. Major
He never
dividends.
gives up either. I love it. I love it. Well,
We
once
also want to
again-
say just thank you to everybody who joined us today and who like watched the show and told a friend, because
Mhm.
I really think that is, how the show really has gotten around as word of mouth. So if you liked it, think and told a friend, thank you so much. You guys are the best.
Thank you. Thank you guys for taking the time. And thank you, everyone. Remember, every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Here, Pacific time, that is, here in the Writing for Your Life room. We're always here. We're always going to have special guests. So we'll tell you who's going to be coming next week as we get closer to it. But thank you, everybody, for popping into the room. And of course, thank you, Jen, Lucia, and Paul for being our guest tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks,
Thanks so much
everyone.
for having us.
Thank you.
All
Ciao.
right. Bye-bye.
Ciao
Bye
for now.
So there we have another Red Room podcast from Clubhouse with the writers of Hacks. I thought they gave such wonderful advice to writers and shared so much. You know, it's really cool to talk to someone who's in that moment of going to the next level. So they weren't so jaded to not understand how they got to where they are. And I felt like they really shared of themselves for these people who want to know how to get to where they need to get to. I love this episode. I thought it was wonderful. So you follow us on Clubhouse. I am there as Scott P. Ryan, I believe. And the name of the room is Writing for Life, so you can become a member. We're going to be doing several more of these. I don't know that they'll all make it to the Red Room, but they have asked me to be like a guest host sometimes. So sometimes I'll be there, sometimes I'm not. I don't really know, but either way, I talked to the Hacks people, and they said I could do a book about their show. So you can go out to Twitter at Scott Luck Story, and you'll see the tweet I sent them. I made like a funny thing with the volleyball to try to show them that I'm really good and I really like the show. And please, sir, can I do a book about your show? Can I? If you would like to read one of my books, go get the Moonlighting book. It's out and we're selling it at Fayetteville Mafia Press or BlueRoseMag.com for $10 off the cover price. Got the Letterman book. We got the art issue of The Blue Rose coming out. You don't even have to read. It's pictures. It's perfect for you. That's at BlueRoseMag.com, the art issue managed edited by Blake Morrow. So as always, follow on Twitter. Thanks for joining Clubhouse. And you know what? I've made a decision. I'm going to explain to you exactly what Clubhouse is. So, it's a very intricate thing. Order Moonlighting and Oral History at ScottRyanProductions.com, FayettevilleMafiaPress.com, or BlueRoseMag.com. Or if you think they need more money to go to space, go ahead and go to Amazon.